Hello everyone, my name is Diatat Avatar, and in this video I will be presenting my midterm project for my CIS 9467 course taught by Professor Wheeler. So today I will show you guys how I used Excel's Power Pivot feature and dashboard to visualize the effects of climate change. So going into this project, my main goal was to again visualize the historical effects and main sources of CO2 emissions. So this is my dashboard right here. So I've created 5 charts and 2 slicer. The slicer on the left can be used to manipulate the data in these 4 charts, except the pie chart. And the slicer on the right can be used to also manipulate data in this 4th chart over here. So let's talk about the first chart. So this chart shows the amount of carbon dioxide we emit in our atmosphere each year, and the data for this chart is on the 3rd tab here. So I've gathered the data from the source, our world and data. In this left column we have the year, and in the right column is the amount of carbon dioxide we emit yearly. This amount is measured in parts per million. So in 1880, we produced a total of 289.1 parts per million of carbon dioxide. So that's the way you would read it. So if we look at the first chart, we see that there's been almost an exponential increase of CO2 emissions in our atmosphere. And one of the main reasons I created this chart was to look at the growth rate of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. And I found it really interesting because we were supposed to be making progress to combat climate change. And what I've saw is that each year as we go on, the growth rate of carbon dioxide emitted into our atmosphere, it's increasing. So, for example, if we look at the chart from the 1960s, I'll do a 10-year period. Let this load let's do a 10-year period. We see that year by year, from 1960, it's at 316, let's say, parts per million. If we go over to 1961, it's still at 316 parts per million, but it increased by 7 decimal places. So there's not a large increase. It's If we continue to go, we'll see that it's increasing around, 0.6 to 0.7 ppm per year. But if we go to currently the last 10 years, let me just clear this filter. We see that the growth rate have dramatically increased. So if we do from 2010 to, let's say, 2018, sorry, we see that there's actually a larger increase in ppm per year. So in 2010 we were at, let's say, 387, right? 386.9. If we go to 2011, we're at 389. So that's like a whole 2 ppm. If we go to 2012, we're at 391. 2013, we are at 393. So as you can see, if we continue to move over year by year, you would see around a 2 ppm increase per year. So definitely the growth rate of carbon dioxide that we have been emitting in the atmosphere has increased, and it shows that we've not made many progress thus far. So moving on to our global average temperature chart, the data set is basically the same with the exception of Um, instead of having the CO2 we emit each year, we have the global average temperature. They're both from the same source. So that's how I created this chart over here. And similarly to this chart, we can see that there's a direct correlation actually. If we look at these two charts in terms of years, they both have the same time periods. And we see as we increase the amount of CO2 we emit in the atmosphere each year, our global average temperature has been increasing. And even though like these, temperatures, they fluctuate where, locally every day, a decimal place in global average temperature actually means a lot, and very, very important. During the last 4 to 5 years, we've actually been hitting record temperatures. So if we do a filter from, let's say, 2013 to 2018, okay, to 2010, um, the temperature, even though it's been increasing like almost exponentially as the first chart, we've been hitting all-time highs. Our lowest was 2013, where it was at 0.68, and from then it never really got back to this point. It's been going up and it went down a little, but it has not gotten back to the point of 2013. So each year it's been increasing more and more recently. Um, this next chart, I wanted to find out, where most of our CO2 emissions came from, what country. So I used this data right here. It gives us data by year for each country and the amount of CO2 emissions emitted for that year. So this data set is really large, so I had to use Power Pivot to analyze it. So it's what, 61,000 rows. So I had to use Power Pivot to, manipulate this data. So there's every single country in here, and to get to this chart, um, sorry, I had to do some manipulation to find the countries that emit the most carbon dioxide. As you can see, it's China, Germany, India, Japan, Russia, and the United States. And the green, obviously for the United States, shows that the United States has emitted the most amount of carbon dioxide since 1751, the time period of this chart. I know that, currently the United States is not the largest yearly emitter, but I just wanted to show that the country that are the United States still among one of the top countries along with these other countries, and the amount of emissions each year is still increasing. There's been very, very little progress. So with that in mind, we will look at natural disasters. And as you will see, all of these charts, they also correlate with the natural disasters chart. So as you can see, there's also an exponential increase in the amount of natural disaster we have we have incurred, and this chart has the types of natural disasters. So, for example, if we wanted to see the number of earthquakes, as you can see during these years, the 1900s, for the most of 1900s, it was minimal. But as we move up from around 1976 and all the way into 2000, it's been increasing. So the frequency of natural disasters have been increasing, just like the growth rate have increased in the CO2 atmospheric concentration, and as our temperature is increasing, so is the frequency of natural disasters. And lastly, I wanted to take a look at CO2 emissions by the source or sector. So the data for that is over here. So in this chart, I have again all the countries and all of the amount of CO2 emission that they have increased. I mean, they have emitted their per source. So again, this chart, it has a lot of data. I needed to add it to the data model and power pivot and manipulate it. So that's how I was able to derive this pie chart over here. Going back to the dashboard, we see after I summarized everything by year and added up all the sectors, um, electricity is still one of the largest emitter of CO2 emissions, followed by now transportation. Increasingly, transportation has been growing a lot, while electricity has been going down a little. But even with all the renewable energy technologies, we see that um, the use of electricity through fossil fuel and the burn of fossil fuel is still one of the dominant forces emitting carbon dioxide today. So with that being said, this is everything that I've created. I hope that you guys find this helpful, and thank you.